thinking about this, Andy, and here we are on one of our rescue projects, and every day we're like, how do we get here? Why are these folks in this situation?
Yeah.
And, I have to say, it's planes don't fall out of the sky because of a bazooka hitting them. Yes, that can happen, but usually it's a series of events
Absolutely.
that capsize the boat, or in this case, the project. And what's staggering to me is, at least our customers, you have like highly successful people that are really good at their thing.
Yep.
And everybody lives in a house that we're working for anyway, thank God. And they've had some experience fixing something. And therefore, because they have experience, or maybe they've remodeled a bathroom, they go, okay, I can handle this. But exponentially, it's so much more complicated.
Yeah.
And I wish like Dumbledore, you could take that thought out of our head and go, holy smokes, think this thing through. And I just wonder if you had a soundbite, what do you see as a common denominator between why folks get in trouble? Because we see it all the time. So what's your opinion on it?
When people come to us and they've already found themselves in a bad situation with their builder, usually they've made two mistakes. And the first is they don't know how to vet and hire a contractor in the first place. They don't really have criteria that they use to decide who they're going to hire. It's usually the person who showed up. It's the lowest bidder. It's, there's really, they did my friend's house and that came out good. And then they don't sign a contract that protects them.
Right.
A good contract, if you have a good contractor and a good contract, you never have to look at the contract. You hope the job goes, it does what it's supposed to do. A good contract will help facilitate the job. It'll help get it unstuck when it's stuck, and it'll protect both parties if the other party doesn't do what they were promised to do in the first place. So when these homeowners come to us and I ask to see their contract, and if they have one, it's a one-pager. They're building a house on a one-page or a two-page document, and it's just a recipe for disaster. And there's everything. When you have an attorney who can help you at the beginning and get the contract in place, now I've seen enough to have the foresight to know, okay, we want to make sure we understand when the payments are going to come, and it's very clearly written in what the scope of the work is and what happens if things fall apart. You have to provide for all the what ifs, and that way, when down the line, if any of those what ifs happen, it's already been agreed to. Everyone understands the rules of engagement.
The contracts is literally the foundation of the project.
Right. And it is usually not till things go wrong that people decide they're going to consult with a professional. And that's the wrong time. It's funny, I was having a conversation with someone this weekend. I met in Connecticut at a family thing, and she just happened to live in Boca. And she asked what I do, and I explained to her the type of law I practice. And she goes, we're going to want to build a house. She goes, so I guess then I'll call you if things go bad. I said, no. I'm like, no, you call me before you ever sign a contract.
Yeah.
That way you won't need me.
I used to be so passive with my friends and family.
Yeah.
How many people would say, business is business. You shouldn't mix business with pleasure. I'm like, wait, says who?
Yeah.
That's just completely wrong. Yeah. And I used to be very passive. I knew somebody was going to build something, and now I'm like, no, do not talk to anybody. Let's have a conversation first. I don't care if I do it. I'm sure, it's fine. You just want to make sure that they don't get hurt.
Right.
And boy, talk about an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, we see it over and over and over again.
And then, even after they get to the point where they've signed the contract, and now before they've ever walked into our office because there's a problem, there's a job that's going on, and there's a lot of people who just trust that the contractor is going to do the right thing or is there to protect them, which I've heard from a lot of people, and that's just not the case, of course. As you know, there's good contractors and there's bad contractors, like there's good lawyers and there's bad lawyers, there's good and bad of everything. But if you don't have the right type of contractor and the right type of person, and you give them, the run of, you give them the keys to the kingdom, and you just let them do what they do without oversight, without management, without getting and requiring the information from them for you to know what's happening in the job. And the thing is, most individual homeowners, they don't know what they're looking at anyway.
Right.
So even if they're getting information, it's not really meaning much to them. It sounds
Right.
like it. Oh, they're showing me pictures. I guess the job is moving fine. But to have, they should have a trained set of eyes, a professional who can be there to be their eyes and their ears. And if you're building a custom home, odds are you're probably fairly successful at whatever it is you do for a living. Focus on that. Have a professional help you deal with it, because the purchase of a home, the home is usually somebody's biggest asset. It's when these types of projects are going on, it's not usually kind of a spur of the moment decision to build a house. It's something they've probably been thinking about, for
dreaming
years,
about,
and for most people, that is a once in a lifetime occasion. Whereas for professionals that are certified master builders, that are construction managers, that are construction lawyers, I mean, we see dozens and dozens and dozens of these, and so there are, there's having that experience, in your corner is invaluable.
And if I was I always like giving some tangible piece of counsel, that's your job, so you can take away and go, how do I act? Your gut, usually. When we see the big disasters, there were signs early on, and I think it's super important to edify those decisions. If you have an eyebrow up on something, have a conversation and reach out hey, is it just me? Is this normal? And right now, everything that's normal is bad. It really is. The abnormal are these jobs that, everything goes right. It's just so much harder right now. And I think you have to bring in, it's self-serving, obviously, but we're here, if I could impress upon whoever's watching this, trust your gut. And even if you're edify it, validate it, make sure that you're making the right decision. There's no harm in getting a second opinion, even if it's your cousin Vinny. Sorry, I watched that last night. Who's doing this project? Get another opinion and say, hey, what do you think about this? Is this done right? Because they're so vast. Unfortunately, there isn't this standard bearer way to do it. You've had folks with solid, just like you said before, all different styles, all different professions, and it's got to be a good fit.
Yeah, and those. So I'm going to talk about red flags for a minute. So some of those red flags that pop up early, that even before you've signed a contract or decided who you're going to hire, they're out there, and you should trust your gut. The biggest problem on these jobs is communication. It is at the center of everything that falls apart on these jobs, and whether it's communication style or the amount of communication or just the ability to relay what you want on the job and what the contractor is trying to explain to you. Here's an example. So, if you're dealing with the contractor before you've signed a contract, he's bidding on the job, this is when he should be trying to impress you and come out of the gate, what do you say, fully charged?
GPS fully loaded and battery fully charged. Yes.
So he should be trying to impress you and on his best behavior and communicating well. If he misses your appointment or he shows up late and doesn't call you to tell you he's going to be late, little things like that, right? You try to call, anytime you try to call him, it's always to his voicemail. That he doesn't have a back office to support him. He doesn't respond to texts. He promises to give you your proposal by Friday, and then you don't get it, and then here it is Monday, and now you're texting him, where is it? Oh, I'm sorry, I'll have it to you Wednesday. That will tell you exactly how your job is going to go. Sure. So that is the first red flag. The second red flag is when they give you the contract. If someone hands you a contract, if a builder hands you a contract and it's a page or it's 2 pages and there's no terms and there's no conditions, there's typos, there's inconsistencies, that should be a red flag that they don't pay attention to detail, that they don't care about their professionalism. It's unprofessional, right? And that is going to be how you handle anything is how you handle everything, and that is going to permeate your entire job. And so, if you're handed a document that looks like your 6th grader wrote it, don't hire that contractor. Right. That is indicative of
how many times have we heard about contractors? I'm sorry, there's so many people in my profession that just it's an embarrassment to the profession where they go, and they bully their potential clients. Go, well, this is the way I've done business for 30 years.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
we have cell phones now,
Yep.
and we have digital signatures. You know, we're
Yeah.
not sitting here using we have laser levels now. Right? Great, line transit would work, but maybe there's a modern way to do business and to communicate. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Those little red flags are not little red flags.
Right. They're not. But I mean, it's easy to overlook, especially. I mean, it could be a long process hiring a contractor and the right contractor, and maybe all right. Again, this is the guy who showed up, and I'm just going to overlook this, and I'm sure we'll be able to work through it, and I'm sure it'll be fine.
Well, I mean, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Because
there's fatigue in the process.
In most people, like, you view the world like you want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to look at things differently as an attorney. A police officer is going to look at everything with a certain degree of skepticism, just from their everyday experience. So I think most homeowners go into it really giving a little too much faith in the process and the folks, and they don't put the scrutiny that it deserves.
Right.
For all the reasons that you said before. I mean, it's so much of this stuff is avoidable, and I think a key takeaway is we're living in a different time. I mean, the average age of a licensed tradesman is late 50s. I just read an article coming here, and it said, inflation's coming down. Not in construction. A door that costs $3,000 is now $10,000. Why? Longer lead times, fewer firms that are making the doors, fewer people that are able to install it. Well, it's just supply and demand. So take that for one. I think there's 2,000 SKUs in a home. 2,000 SKUs. You're gonna go pick out 2,000 things at a Home Depot. That's 2,000 things that take longer, cost more expensive, and are harder to facilitate. So your degree of difficulty going into this project is much more. I think I said it before. You need to call in reinforcements beforehand, or if you're in the middle of it, like, don't wait.
Right.
Like, don't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. And in these, and we keep referring to situations where people are building homes, but I mean, renovations, it's the same thing. I mean, it's the same process when it comes to hiring someone who's going to renovate your house. The same type of red flags show up. More red flags tend to show up because it just happens to be that I think a lot more of the renovation only contractors tend to be more of the kinds that are a little less professional than some of the home builders. And so I think people run into they're dealing with smaller numbers and smaller jobs. The formality just isn't there. They tend to be more one-man shops where the guy you're talking to who's selling the job is the one who's doing the construction. And one thing, another red flag to look out for, especially in a remodeling context, when they suggest to you that you shouldn't pull permits. Like, if the work needs a permit and you should have a permit, make them pull a permit. And I know it's going to take a little longer, and they'll say, oh, it's going to take longer, it's going to add months to your job. It shouldn't add months to your job, but it's going to cost you more money. Yeah, it'll cost you a little more money, but having as a homeowner, having the permit pulled protects you in multiple ways. Number one, okay, so you have an inspector with the city or with the county who's going to come inspect the work. That inspector is going to make sure it, at the very minimum, meets code, right? And so that's obviously important. Doesn't mean they're going to make sure that it meets the standard you were expecting, but it'll meet code. But more importantly is, if you're a homeowner and you've had work done without a permit, that is a code violation. And at some point, if it ever gets discovered, it's going to be on you as the homeowner. The ultimate is going to fall in your lap, and that's going to be something you may have to retroactively deal with and try to get approved. If you ever go to sell a house where you've had work done without a permit, you need to disclose that to the people who are buying your house. It is a material fact, and so if you don't, and they can inherit this problem, and if you don't advise them that's
I mean, a permit's like a form of insurance. Like, all this stuff, the contract's a form of insurance, and if you're the person that doesn't carry insurance, okay, well, it's on you. Right. I mean, like, I think homeowners also have to just take responsibility for themselves and go, you could be part of the problem. Yeah. And I keep circling back to, you have to kind of protect yourself from yourself, because you are good natured. Most people are, and you want the best, and you want this to be easy and quickly. And a lot of bad actors prey on that.
Yep.
it's unfortunate to, I guess maybe I'm a little jaded just because we see so many folks right now that I never imagined being in this position right now. After 20 years of business, I would have never thought the business would be that much harder, that the industry itself would be so much more difficult, lack of successful. I just completely missed that bet. So I don't know.
Well, we've had an opportunity recently to speak with some folks at the DBPR, right? The organization that licenses contractors, and things like unlicensed contracting and contractors who are not doing what they're who are licensed contractors who are letting unlicensed people use their license illegally to do work on homes that shouldn't be done is a big problem. And it makes it more difficult for reputable contractors to do their thing, because these folks are coming in very low bidders on jobs, and if that's the driving factor behind people's decisions, then it just more of these unlicensed contractors.
Do you know how many times I ask people, did you check their references?
Mm-hmm.
And they go, I didn't even ask for them.
Yeah.
I'm like, my next door neighbor used them. Yeah, when? 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, that person's 10 years older. Business, you have no idea where they are. Like, and you didn't even ask for the references, let alone call them or have you do the reference check. Look up there. I am not. Look, I fell victim to it myself.
Yeah.
Famously hired my next door neighbor to do a small job because he was a subcontractor, lives across the street from me. Who doesn't want to hire their next door neighbor? Give them a little work. Unlicensed, fake certificate of insurance. Oh my gosh, best investment I ever made. Losing that money.
Right, expensive education.
It was expensive education, but now hopefully lots of people will benefit from it.
Yeah, yeah. There's information out there to be found about these folks online for doing your due diligence. And yes, you should ask for references, and you should certainly call them. But there's so many public records out there when it comes to lawsuits. Even the licensing division has their information right online. In the state of Florida, licenses are given to people, not companies, right? So if you're hiring a company to do work, there has to be a licensed individual who has taken their license and qualified the business to do work. And that information is all online. You can see who qualifies any particular business, and you can put the business name into the state's website, and if it doesn't come up, then odds are they're not qualified by a properly licensed person, and which means you're hiring an unlicensed contractor. Now, someone might tell you anyway, oh, we're licensed, the website screwed up, whatever. But a lot of times those people are getting other folks who have licenses to pull permits for them and giving them a little bit of money on the side to do that for them. That information is not going to show up when you go to do a search. So, the contract you get is supposed to have a license number on it. Under the statutes in Florida, you should take that license number, you go and you look it up in the lookup on the state's website. It'll tell you whose license that is and the company that's allowed to use it. And if that doesn't match up with the paperwork you've been given, you need to ask more questions.
Yeah, and look, even if it's a very small job, a lot of things I hear is, no, I don't need a license for that.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't have a license. You might not need the license, but you still should be hiring licensed professionals.
Yeah.
Not the proverbial Chuck in a truck. No disrespect to people named Chuck, but
right. Yeah, it's definitely a big.
And all these things we're talking about, like I keep wishing there was like some great soundbite, some aha moment we could say like, don't do this thing but it's all these little things add up, and if some of these points, some of these little red flags or the yellow flags, they all potentially could add up. And you shouldn't be having these eyebrows up. Like we say all the time to customers, listen, if you have a concern, don't wait. Tell me about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I don't want is the garbage truck to just get dumped on. I didn't say this last month because your guy didn't sweep up. I didn't say this. I bit my tongue. I was like, we want to know. We constantly want this because I don't want it to build up.
Right.
Because you're going to get construction. I think you get buyer fatigue in the middle because it's hard to find that match.
Right.
And maybe because of this fatigue, because there are so few people doing this, when you get that warm body that shows up and they think you just want this process to be done
exactly right.
sooner. So now you have this arranged marriage. Oh, okay, now we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, we're already in trouble. So if I just think all these little warning signs, I mean, there isn't a construction project. I mean, the most successful ones we can Monday morning quarterback and go,
sure, of course,
I wish I did that. But the relationship's intact.
Yeah.
And they'll know it. They'll go, yeah, shouldn't you insisted on that type of countertop, which you warned me about, or I had no idea that the permit process was going to take this long because we did a change order and then had to go back to City Hall and
right.
nobody's perfect. I mean, I missed something today. I said, wait, you said X, now you're saying Y, and the homeowner sent me a screenshot and I missed it. Okay. It's going to happen.
Right.
If it, what is it? Never attribute malice when ignorance, or, people are allowed to make mistakes, but to your point before, you have to set that cadence up of communication.
Right.
Like, don't mind. If you're not minding your store, then you got to have somebody else in place to mind it, either legally or the construction. Maybe we should talk about that a little bit. We've been venturing into this owner's representation space, which traditionally doesn't exist in residential contracting.
Right.
It's par for the course. You build a baseball stadium, you don't just hire, the municipality doesn't just hire a general contractor, they hire a firm, a construction manager as the constructor, but they also have another firm that's going to be the construction manager as an advisor, which in a residential term is called an owner's rep. And I wonder if, like, the average person realizes that position exists. I wonder.
I think most don't. I think most don't know that it exists, and most would need to be convinced of the value of someone like that. Like, why should, everyone goes into the project thinking, they've all heard the horror stories. They all know the same stories we tell and see every day, but they think it's just not going to happen to them.
Right.
Or they just stick their head in the sand and just, hope it doesn't happen to them. Hope is not really much of a...
Well, I think brass tacks too is, number one, maybe they don't know about it. And number two, it's just billed as an extra layer of expense.
Right.
Which is like the exact opposite. The owner's rep, if he's doing his job, is going to pay for himself.
Absolutely.
I'll give an example, and maybe you can give one from your end. One example of an owner's rep is, look, if you read a set of plans, how do you know, and I'll use an exaggerated case, like, how do you know the house needs 3,000 cinder blocks as opposed to 300 or 30,000? Like, how do you really know that? Okay, your guess, your hunch is it's 3,000. Do you know that they showed up and got delivered in the front door, didn't go out the back door?
Right.
If there was 500 blocks too many, what happened to them?
Right.
Is there a credit on your account, or do they get thrown in the dumpster because it's so much work to load a pallet and return 500 cinder blocks? Like, an owner's rep, just slippage, monitoring that will pay for themselves and then some, not just on the cost of goods, but the time of the project.
That's what I was going to say too, right? It's like, there's always a money issue, and then there's a time issue. And if you have, and time can affect you as the owner in so many different ways, that whether you're building, a place that because you intend to rent it out and earn income and revenue off it, or it's going to be the place that you plan on living with your family. And when these things drag on, most people are coming into this situation needing to leave the house they're living in, or sell the place there so they can time the move the right way. And, when these things go wrong, I just spoke to someone right now who's building a house, and the contractors basically bailed on them. And I asked, well, how is this affecting you? Well, we sold our house, so, in addition to being out the money, and, where are you living right now? Well, we live with our daughter, and, wherever they live with their adult daughter, and sometimes we're in our trailer. So, this is, and for people who have that, it's not a comfortable situation, right, to be living with a family member for what's going to be a very extended period of time, months and months and months, probably, at least before their houses could be, to the point where they can get a certificate of occupancy and move into it. Alternatively, there, we hear stories of people for years renting second homes, apartments, hotels, whatever it might be, to sort of piece together. All the while they're paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month because their stuff is in storage, and it just adds up. So that time that an owner's rep can save you by making sure not just that the contractor is doing what they're supposed to and that the job is going to continue, but when you build a house, there's a lot of inspections that take place, right? So the owner's representative who has good relationships can make those inspections happen much more promptly by bringing in, let's say, a private inspector or somebody who can do the inspections very rapidly and promptly and have the same person doing them, as opposed to waiting for someone from the county or the city to come by and do every single inspection, maybe wait a couple of days, slow down the job a couple of days, times 80 something inspections.
And you can flip it too. Like, look, as a contractor, I would much rather deal with an owner's rep that speaks my language, that is taking the advocacy spot for the homeowner, and it's going to make the process go easier, because it's going to make my job easier. Absolutely. As the contractor.
Absolutely.
So it's a complete misperception of, maybe you don't know what it is, or maybe you heard somebody else that is unqualified giving their opinion of it, as opposed to somebody that swims in this universe and goes, no, here's how this works.
Right.
For again, self-serving comment, but if you're not aware of what an owner's rep is, I would take a deep dive in that, because just understanding what the roles and responsibility of it, that is information that is going to help you.
Yeah.
Even if you don't hire them, at least you'll understand, oh wow, these are the things that we should be minding in the store.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. So how do in thinking about the value of an owner's rep has, especially when it comes to dealing with those contractors who might be a little less professional than than how you hope your contractor would be. How do we get more contractors to be professional?
Oh my gosh, I look, I've been barking about this on social media. Like, here we are, our two most recent projects. I don't understand why the contractor didn't raise their hand and just go to their peer group for help. Like, it's just both of them. That is the center of the Venn diagram between these two disasters. Is the contractor got in trouble earlier. If they had just reached out and said, hey, how do I help? Like, look, I met you. I had attorneys all my life. Thought I had a really good attorney until I met you, and you just chopped up a contract that I've been using for a long time. I was like, holy smokes, I had no idea. Well, great. Now we have the 900-pound gorilla in the arsenal. So, like, fundamentally, any contractor that doesn't want to talk to a peer, that doesn't want to put himself up for a peer review, isn't looking to learn from somebody, especially now, because it's so hard. That would be my big red flag. Big red flag.
Right.
Look, we just operated in one state before the pandemic hit. Followed all our customers to their vacation homes. Went from one state to 5 states within 6 months. The way we did it was collaborating with our customers, who are my friends, going, hey, do you have an electrician up in Vermont that you want to use? Let me talk to them. And that's how we expanded our arsenal. And I learned so much more, because you're willing to, this doesn't mean I had to marry the person,
right?
But what's wrong with getting a tradesman in and finding out what to do? Maybe they're a better fit. Doesn't mean you have to reinvent somebody's business, but my point is, be open to that conversation. Open to that conversation. We had a real nice project we were bidding on, and the owner loved his painter. Now, painters are super important. I'm not going to peel it off and say, okay, fine, you paint. It's my license, my name, but I'll hire your painter. If you like him, I'm going to interview him. I want to check out. I want to go through his references, because then I'll have another painter that I want to work with as a general contractor. So I think that we stumbled upon a very, very, very good point. Like, fundamentally, anybody that's not interested in talking to a peer, that is trouble. I mean, you can test them and say, hey, how would you feel about me talking to an owner's rep? It'd be like, me giving my contract out and saying, your attorney doesn't need to review that.
Right.
Who would talk like that?
Right.
You expect a peer review from your contract, so why wouldn't you expect a peer review from the construction side as well?
Is there a place that contractors can go for mentoring, and is that a thing that exists?
Oh, absolutely. Like you should ask your contractor, like, what trade association do you belong to? Mm-hmm. If they do not belong to a trade association, there's another red flag. Mm-hmm. There's ABC, Associated Building Contractors. There's the National Association of Home Builders. Even if it's a local BNI, a Business Networking International, some place where they're collaborating with folks in their industry. Mm-hmm. If they're not doing that, then they're walking around like they smell like roses.
Right.
And that's a big sign.
Okay.
So they're out there. I mean, and if there's a builder out there that wants, as a matter of fact, I'll even go out on a limb and say, you can't survive in this business unless you're part of a trade association. It's just too hard to navigate. It takes cooperation and collaboration because there's so few people that can do the work. I mean, like, substantially do the work.
Right. So in Florida, where we are, we have we have home builder associations.
So in Florida, full disclosure, I'm a card carrying member of the National Association of Home Builders. I've been involved with the NAHB for 11 years. There's 600 and change local chapters throughout the country. In Florida, there's 23 local home builders associations, and under the National Association of Home Builders, at the state level, there's a state organization. Mm-hmm. So in Florida, we have the Florida Home Builders Association. There's 8,667 businesses in the FHBA. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty extensive peer group.
Right.
And if that doesn't vet out, if you're not part of an organization like that that says, hey, I'm willing to put myself out there in front of my peers. I mean, I say it all the time, iron sharpens iron. Mm-hmm. My best friends I've learned the most are from folks that are my direct competitors. Mm-hmm. And it's not a competition,
right,
because I want to best serve the customer. Someone will call me up, I'm like, hey, you should really call Josh. Josh is more suited for this. Or you should call Ray. He's really an expert in that subject.
Right.
I want to help our industry. Somebody that's sitting here just trying to...
Yeah, well, that's like everything else, right? I mean, it's how you approach it. Is like if you see things as win-win, then you're not in direct competition. Yeah, we all have competitors in our businesses and what we do, but I mean, if you're doing things the right way and you have the right mindset towards it, I mean, there's enough to go around for everybody.
You're speaking my language. Look, I mean, I say it. That is the old way of business in life.
Yeah.
Win, lose. I mean, that's when I grew up. It was Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life or Gordon Gekko. Mm-hmm. Greed is good. And that's really the old way of doing business. The current way, especially in Florida. I mean, I love Florida. I mean, it is 28% of Florida's economy is construction. Mm. It's huge. And there's so much demand here. And in the halls of government to even the building department, it is a win-win. We just spoke at the building officials of Palm Beach County, and you have the fee-based side and the profit-based side. So fee-based side are the inspectors, fire department, building officials, and the profit side are all the people doing the work.
Yeah,
they all understand you got to work together. It's not, I don't want the building inspector to see this. Like, I learned more from the building inspector when we just had a problem. We had a final electric inspection and these arc fault protectors, which are unbelievably finicky. You look at them and they trip. And the inspector has a special machine. He plugs it out. I'm sure everybody knows what a GFCI is in your bathroom. You press one button, it trips a GFCI, just like you see in your bathroom. There's a little test button. Well, arc fault is almost like a GFCI in the electric panel, and there's another button he presses, and he couldn't get the arc fault to trip. And he goes, this has been a problem lately because the new outlets that have USBs in them, so you can charge your cell phone, there's actually a transformer in there that steps the voltage down from 120 volts to 12 volts. And that interferes with the arc fault detector. So technology hasn't come up. These outlets are either too sophisticated or not sophisticated. But I was like, wow, I learned something, only because I want to understand. It's not like getting all aggravated because the inspector is doing his job. And now we know, okay, great, another tool in my toolbox. Maybe we're not going to put USB outlets in bathrooms because they're going to interfere. So I love. I mean, you definitely struck a chord with me. That win-win mindset.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be argumentative. Like it shouldn't be one-sided. You shouldn't feel like you're losing out. You know what else we should talk about, Andy? We should talk about like financial arrangements too, like the financial terms of jobs. We had that job. I remember it was a massive job, and they won 50% down. 50% down, and it was a big project. And I remember you saying to me, like, "Is this normal?" I'm like, "No way!" Like, look, here I got a tangible tidbit that everybody could take. Your first payment that you make should be the exact same dollar amount as the last payment. Whatever you put down as the deposit, I don't care what it is. 2% of the job, 5% of the job, that should be the exact same end, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're willing to risk on good faith $5,000, then your contractor should be willing to risk the same thing at the end. You're not a bank, neither is the contractor, and there's nothing that says you can't have 100 benchmarks. That doesn't mean you have to write 100 checks. I mean, we have, I don't know, maybe on a whole house construction, maybe 50 benchmarks. I don't send out 50 invoices, but we have benchmarks because that protects everybody. And you batch them as the job goes well, great, everybody's comfortable, it's good. But the job doesn't go well, it's win-win, because then the customer can say, no, I want you to pass the electric inspection before I pay you. Or if I'm worried about getting paid, I'm going to go, no, I'm not doing anything else until you pay me since I passed the electric inspection. And I don't think that is a one-size-fits-all. Like that is something that very easily you could obtain to. And I'll repeat it, the homeowner's not a bank, the contractor's not a bank. It should be equitable and fair on both ends. And I see way too many people going, getting buffaloed by a builder.
And that you lose leverage if you're the owner. When a builder is holding 80% of the money and you're only 40% of the way through the job. And that we've seen very often in our office, clients who come to us because their builder, they can't get them to finish. They can't get them to come back and it makes the last 25-30% of the job lasts a year. It's just because the contractor is off to following the shiny object. They're newer clients. They're trying to sign up new people, get bigger deposits and all that. And they know they only have a few $1,000s left to make on your job. And, when you're dealing with the wrong type of contractor, they'll rarely be sending people out there. It's very few and far between before you see anybody. They promise they'll show up. You take the day off because you finally want to meet the project manager there, and then they don't show up. They don't tell you they're not showing up, and now you've missed work because of it. I mean, we hear that all the time. And so, and at the heart of it, when people come to us and they want to try to get their contractor to pay attention to their job, we talk about leverage. I talk about leverage a lot in my conversations with clients. You've come to us at a point where you've kind of given that away already. And so how do we get that back? And we've got certain ways to try to get the contractor to refocus and pay attention to the job and finish it and make it realize that's in their best interest to do it. But it doesn't come without a cost to the client, and it gets adversarial and it's all you want at that point is to finish the job so you can have your family over for Thanksgiving. You don't want to have to continue to have this drag out longer and longer.
I have a nice soundbite, a nice education point. I always say the last 10% of the job is half the work. The last 10% is so much harder. It is. We say it all the time. Not that financially you're going to hold back 50% of the money, but be under no misconception that you want to have some cards in your deck to make sure you're your checklist gets closed out, your punch list gets closed out.
Yeah.
All those little things.
Yeah.
I mean, that you said it before. I say, what you do once, you do always, and you want to be in a position where you can hold somebody accountable to do those. The devil in those details.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we see that all the time, like all the time.
Yeah. So you and I are sort of fortunate enough that we get to sit in a special room with folks that are Florida certified master builders. So I would talk about that a little bit and sort of what that is, what these folks are trying to do.
Well, we're doing it. We're not trying. Sorry to step on you, counselor, but the Florida certified master builders is the Olympics just ended. They are the Olympians in our industry. So you have, your normal. Florida is the hardest state in the country to be a licensed general contractor, certified building contractor or certified general contractor. It's the hardest in the country. Florida certified master builders take that as requirements and then add on to it. It's a financial health check and peer review. You're subject to a peer review. I remember being told about the Florida certified master builders years ago, and somebody just shouted, they saw me coming. Hey, you should try to be a Florida certified master builder. I wonder if you can do it. I said, what do you mean I wonder if I can do it? And it has just been the greatest thing ever. You have now, I think we have 36 Florida certified master builders in the state out of 36,000 contractors. So it is, they really are the Olympians. They're few and far between. We're growing. You're always looking for other folks to come in, but it is a credential that is bar none. In that universe, and it goes back to your win-win culture, it is really folks that just want to be at the top of their game, surrounded by other folks that are just highly competitive. If you take any sports analogy, any sports player, they are all in there learning from each other.
Right.
You could pick the sports, two starting, major league pitchers, they're all competing against each other for stats. They all know each other. They're all taking bets. Hey, what's your best prep? What's your strength coach say? That's what that room is doing. And we now have Florida certified master sponsors, which are our associates, which, as I affectionately call, Murderers Row. And I'm very proud that Andy is a Florida certified master builder. And we have a couple attorneys in the group who it's just, they're so smart at the top of their game and collaborative, which is just a recipe for success. It is really originally, I'll share, it was when it was conceived, it was to market it to the public. And because of COVID, we kind of shifted and realized, no, this is really a peer review. This is really to vet out the folks that want to be the best in your industry. I have this on my shoulder. I am so proud of it. I've spent my entire career to be in that group of people is just, I am so honored and proud of it. And the last thing I would want to do is do anything to, make my peers look bad. I want to, fight to be on that Olympic team every single time and keep raising the bar. It's tough, but it's doable. It's definitely doable.
Yeah, I'd love to see that group have the effect of raising the bar as much as possible, like throughout the industry, right? Like try to raise the water level so
100%.
all the boats could float a little higher. And I think it's at some point it'll like I said. So when these people come into our office and on an individual by individual basis, sometimes it's really hard to help people. And if you're in sort of service of the project and you're just trying to really we just want to see people have successful projects. And if it can't always happen with people who walk through our doors. We're always trying to do the things that help the industry, whether it's educating consumers, whether it's educating builders, having fair contracts in place, or establishing standards that can, get rid of the bad actors and, make everybody that's staying involved increase their
and I think
improve their game.
the Florida Certified Master Builders kind of self-polices, and there isn't a Florida Certified Master Builder that would not do anything they could to help somebody that wants to better themselves.
Right.
I would have been out of business if it wasn't for the Florida Certified Master Builder group. When inflation kicked in, I mean, I had subcontractors of mine losing their homes, going bankrupt because they didn't have contracts in it. They didn't have escalation clauses. Look, we did business for 18 years since I personally spent 10 years on Wall Street. My whole thing was, I spent 10 years on Wall Street. Here's a proposal. You can take it to the bank. We had to change the way we do business. We changed completely now and operate at a cost plus, open book, full transparency. And I remember my brother-in-law, years ago, I put a bathroom in their house, and I gave him the price. I said, okay, the bathroom, here's the bottom line. And he goes, well, I want it broken out. And I said, well, when you buy a car, you don't know what the spark plugs cost or the transmission cost. He goes, well, I'm your brother-in-law. I want to know. And I went, okay. And that was the roadmap for now what we do. Because now everybody knows that everything costs. So why am I fighting that? I'd rather just show you.
Right.
And I think we stumbled upon another point that is like, anybody that is holding their cards the best, that's a problem.
Yep.
That is a huge problem.
Right.
The more transparency you get, the better the price. You might not like what you see.
Right.
You might not understand why is the paint so much number. And I love having that. And we can talk real world example. Why is the paint? I have one painter that charged me $3,000 and another painter that's charging $9,000. Okay, who's doing the prep work? How much of that painting number is actually for prep for paint as opposed to just paint? How much is it for cleanup from the paint? Everybody here knows what it's like to clean up paint. has seen those spots of paint on something that doesn't belong. And you got to really tease through those numbers to see where it is. But I would much rather have that conversation. Like I always say, I don't want to lose the job because somebody doesn't understand what's in the number.
Right.
Why is your plumber so expensive? Because my plumber's been with me for 18 years, and if there is a problem, he is going to answer that phone when I call him, and he's going to show up at your house.
Right.
And he doesn't want to show up at your house, doesn't want me calling him, so he's going to do a really good job. That's where your money's going. Right. It's not going, to his boat.
Right. And that, we get clients who are in the middle of jobs with builders, and they get presented with an invoice, and it's just a line item, draw $50,000 or whatever, and it's just, and they want answers, they want information, and the builder won't give it to them. I'm not obligated to give you that, and it brings the job to a halt, because then the owner doesn't want to pay it, and then the builder's not going to, or the contractor won't come back and continue the work because the owner's not paying. And again, it gets stuff that could be avoided, but these are real.
And it's hard. There's a line too. I mean, we have this when I do education centers or education sessions for budding contractors. There's a cadence to the job. You're sitting there, you're working on the job. Maybe you're hands-on. You're the guy that's doing the estimates at night. You're not full-blown massive company. Okay, fine. Homeowner comes in and says, hey, could you put another door in for me? And now the contractor's there in sweaty mode, pencil in his ear, doing his thing, and he's got to make a decision. Does he stop work, write up the change order, send it to the homeowner, or does he go, sure, I'll do it. Right. And then he doesn't send the paperwork.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, not maliciously, homeowners said, hey, while you're there, could you also paint that? And there's like 10 things. And now the contractor's going, oh, wait a minute, I got to figure this thing out. And now, again, not out of malice, but it's just, inexperience or, wanting to please somebody, want to say yes. And now they send that change order in, and the homeowners remember saying, right, I didn't ask you. Well, no, maybe your spouse did,
right?
Or and it's at the beginning signs like we've just added another layer of paperwork now, only because this happens so much. And I'm going to coin a new term. I'm going to call it the Amazon effect. Is you are so used to be able to sit there and click something on your phone and put in your cart, and you do that, and you remember Amazon.
It's on your doorstep the next day.
It's on your step, and you can't.
Hours.
Amazon's not going to go. You didn't order this.
Right.
Like they have a picture of it there.
Yeah,
They got it down. So we now instantly, when somebody asks to do something, we'll right then and there send an email. Hey, just to confirm the work order. So we've added the step before they get the change order. There's just some digital handshake.
Sure.
And it's win-win because I want the office to know, don't forget this on the next change order.
Right.
I want the homeowner to do it because a lot of times they're not both there. It's the spouse isn't home, and we send it usually to both parties. And then if there's buyer's remorse, there's a chance to unwind it.
Right.
And it doesn't really take a whole lot of time.
Right.
And it solves that problem. And that's a little advice I have to anybody that doesn't want to stop in the middle of their job. It takes 2 seconds. Send yourself and your homeowner an email. Yep, we'll price out the extra door, and you can do that when you do your paperwork. Mm-hmm. That's anybody that's not that. Again, I think it's the third time we're saying what you do once, you do always.
Right.
You have a good. What do you call it? Not a chain of command. Custodian, standard operating procedure, I guess was, if you, not that you got to have the most dialed in. I mean, there's systems out there, but there should be something, something, not nothing. There's a line. There's a line in between it.
Yeah. All right.